I'm Danny V of DMV Films. Let me tell you a story that you'll enjoy.
Power and respect. And respect cannot come without power. That is the language that you need to understand in the Middle East. If you don't understand the language, you are doomed.
Power and respect.
And I'll give you the best example. I come from the world of negotiation. Let's say me and you are having an argument right now about who this plant belongs to. You say, it's mine.
This is my studio.
Exactly. No, you say, it's my studio. I said, no, I want it. Now, you are way stronger than me. And you come and say...
I don't know, you're a special forces officer.
For the sake of the story. And you come and say, if this guy takes my plant, I can break every bone in his body. But then you come in and say, but you know what? For the sake of peace, I'm not going to listen. How about I'll give you part of the plant and you grow it, or I don't know what, we can grow it together for peace. Everybody in your world, let's say in the European, American world, say like, wow, that was a sign of strength. That man showed restraint, showed diplomacy. He's a powerful man. In the Arab world, that man is weak. He's pretending to be strong, but I sense weakness. I can exploit that.
You've been asking me to make a video about Mansur Ashkar. He is the preeminent spokesman for the Druze. He's Israeli. He speaks English well. He speaks Arabic well. He speaks Hebrew well. He lives currently in Germany, fought in the IDF, in the special forces. And ever since this whole situation with the Druze, October 7th, he's been making rounds on the media. I'm going to check out an interview from him about 9 months ago. This was right after the 12 Druze children were tragically killed in the north by a Hezbollah missile. Weakness in the Middle East is not displayed through kindness. That's something that comes from the Bible. That's a biblical quality, that it's not about killing. It's not about forcing. It's about being the bigger person and avoiding conflict where you can. These are Judaic Christian values that the Muslims don't necessarily share. And I don't want to paint Muslims with a broad brush. Every single person's an individual. Everybody's different. And Turkey is different from Egypt, and Egypt is different from Syria, and Syria is different from the Gulf states. But this is something very important to know, which is one of the reasons why the peace process could never and would never work between Israel and the Arabs. Because the West was coming from a position that the way to peace is for Israel to give up concessions to the Arabs. Even though Israel is a stronger party and Israel has beat the Arabs in every single war, often at great cost in lives. For instance, Yom Kippur War, 1/5 of the Israeli IDF was wiped out on the first day. So sometimes at great cost. You know, we had about 1,000 civilians killed on October 7th. So sometimes at great cost. The difference is they think the way to peace is through concession, but we know the way to peace is not through concessions. The way to peace is to destroy the enemy. And once you've destroyed the enemy and you show that you could do it over and over again, now we can talk about concessions. But only once is demonstrated that I don't have to make any deal with you. I can just destroy you. But we as Jews, really the West, we don't glorify in killing. We don't glorify in death. And that's something that is not necessarily shared with the most extreme elements of what used to be called the Occidental or Orientalism. Really, the Muslim world does not share that. The certain elements of the society have no problem. And we saw it with the Yazidis. We saw it with the Druze. On the Druze October 7th that happened just a few days ago, they have no problem. Certain elements have no problem wiping out everyone they don't agree with. It's very like old school, like
Israeli government.
then
What happened with the 4-day falls?
how do you resolve CNN when CNN actually mattered? Very old school style. I like it.
Divination.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I want to first of all apologize to our viewers for the late release of the episode. Our technical team simply had to spend half an hour readjusting the lighting in the studio here because you insisted on wearing a hat. What's the deal with the hat?
Well, the deal with the hat is when I started speaking on October 8th, I had a mad scientist haircut. And I asked my 4-year-old to give me a haircut, which some might see as not a very wise decision. And he went, and I looked more like Einstein, so I started putting a hat. And since then, I kind of stuck with the hat. And now coming here again, I went and I got a haircut with an Arab hairdresser in Germany, and he gave me a very Arab kind of haircut. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to keep the hat right now.
That's interesting that he has a 4-year-old. So that means he has young children, presumably multiple young children, at least one young child.
Understand from you where the Druze community stands in the post-October 7th era. Who exactly the Druze are. Try to understand this community that remains largely an enigma to the outside world, partly because its religion is largely secret, even a secret from many of its own
From
adherents.
the Druze, yeah.
But first, before we get on to the Druze, I want to understand more about you. Tell me your story. Where did you grow up? How did we get to this place?
Oh, wow. So I grew up, I was born and raised in Sweida and Mghal. That's the two villages. My family origins from Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. One side was probably for the last 1,000 years in Israel, and the others came from there. And we were one of the first Druze families to leave the Shire and to go to the world. We were one of the first Druze families to leave a Druze village and go live in a Jewish city.
Which is still relatively rare, is it not?
Very rare. When we first got to, that was the city that we went to, no one knew what these were. They were like literally shocked. People thought that our flags were different flags. They had no idea that it's a Druze flag, and we had
They thought they were Palestinian flags or pride flags?
both.
Both.
Sometimes people will come, like a whole car will come and think that my mom's house is a restaurant for LGBTQ. They'll come knocking, and my mom is super hospitable. Come, and then they'll come in and they're trying to like.
It's very strange because that would have been, let's say he's in his 40s or 50s, is reasonable, right? So that would have been, when he was a kid, would have been 30 or 40 years ago. I don't think pride flags were a thing. I don't remember seeing any pride flags until I was at least out of college. So we're talking about 15 years ago. So it's very strange. I mean, I know it's a joke, but it's very strange they say that. Also, Palestinian flags wasn't a big thing. I never really saw Palestinian flags until maybe 5 years ago.
And you're like, that's a cool theme. But they're like, I think that's not LGBTQ here. So there was a lot of misunderstanding about it. And we became pretty much.
I think they're really trying really hard. Basically, he's, I don't want to say a propagandist, but he's really trying to push for Israel, the host. He's a former spokesman for the Israeli government, and he's trying everything he can to push Israel, but he kind of overdoes it, in my opinion. He's overdoing it a little bit. I don't think that Israel is so friendly to homosexual people is a selling point that he thinks it is. I certainly don't think anybody's rights should be violated and nobody should be attacked for their sexuality. But I think most people today who are homosexual, they just want to be left alone to do their own thing and live their life. The out and proud and very vocal and flag waving people, they're a small minority. I think most people just want to live a quiet life.
Pretty much ambassadors for the Druze community in my town. My mom became very outspoken about it. And she helped even change the whole education system in Israel after a while because she realized that they're not talking enough about minority groups in Israel.
That shows you something about Israel, that Israel is willing to listen to her. That's something about a Jew too. There's an idea in Judaism that everybody has a platform. You might not agree with the platform, that might be totally wrong. But in the Jewish space, we listen to everybody. And that extends also to non-Jews. We'll listen. We don't have to agree with them, but we'll listen. And that's not necessarily a thing in every culture.
Just imagine that. A Druze woman that didn't finish school ended up reaching the ministry in Israel for education and convincing them to change the whole curriculum for the state of Israel because she believes that there should be more representation of Bedouins, Christians, Muslims, all the minority groups, and they did it. And thanks to my mom, this is right now in the Israeli system. Instead of one class about them, they have a whole dedicated week for almost every group.
Phenomenal. And that's part of the Druze story in Israel. There are phenomenal overachievers, and you yourself served in a special forces unit.
I was an officer in the special forces.
An officer, no less.
Yeah. I was a negotiator in the army. I was dealing a lot with hostage rescue during my service. My whole family came from like a very rich military kind of background. My grandfather was the first Druze, the first non-Jew to light the
Independence Day torch.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
amazing.
Back in the days.
What did he do to earn that incredible honor?
Wow. He helped liberate Iran. He, by himself, fought 13 terrorists in Lebanon and took them down only by himself, saving his friends.
Single-handedly?
Yeah, single-handedly.
Extraordinary.
Wow, he was a very impressive man. And he was a religious man. He was a friend of him. He was into politics. So with all the effort that he did for the Jews, for the Druze, they found him worthy to light them so up.
And yet, despite this extraordinary connection and record of service to the state of Israel, you live in Germany now.
Yes.
Why did you can I call it Rida, right?
Yeah, you can call it Yerida up to the north.
I hope it's only temporary.
I hope so too. I mean, I love Germany. I'm enjoying it. But I also got so much from growing up in Israel that I want my son to get that as well. There's so much richness in this culture, so much diversity that is hard to find anywhere else. So I would really love.
That's the thing, there's a difference between the working class people and the people at the top. And once you reach a certain level, for most people, what country you live in doesn't matter. You see that a lot with people who make their money on the internet or people who make their money online like he does. You'll see that over and over again. They'll go to Germany, they'll go here, they go there, because They want to go wherever they think the best life is because their income is independent of their location. I think they call them digital nomads. There's actually happened last week. There's a big controversy with digital nomads in Mexico. They go there. There's also a big problem in Greece, but in Mexico, people there started rioting, smashing shops. Why is it they always want to smash shops? Poor guy starts a business or a lady starts a business, saves all their money, gets a business going. Here they come to destroy your profits. You know, a lot of times small businesses go on razor thin margins. They make enough to live on and maybe a little bit to invest. And here they come to smash. Anyway, digital nomads. He's a digital nomad.
Love to have it. But I'm there because of my kid. My kid is there, and we have a great childhood there. So it's a good place.
So look, tell me, many of our viewers will never have heard about the Druze community. Maybe some would have heard in the context of the...
Anybody who's watching this show should have heard of the Druze. This is a Israeli show. It's a Israeli, I won't say propagandist, but it's a show to promote Israel. I think anybody who knows about Israel heard of the Druze. They're the most prominent example of the minority, the most loyal minority in Israel. The only one that's subject to universally subject to, that's not the only one. It's the main one that's universally subject to conscription. The Black Hebrews of the Mona are also subject to conscription. There's a few other groups, but it's not common.
The Hezbollah attack on Al-Shams that killed 12 children. Perhaps others will have heard that there is a minority non-Jewish community in Israel called the Druze. Give me your elevator pitch. Who are you?
Who am I?
By the way, I have to say, you know, when you speak abroad and ask people, where are you from? What's your story? People take offense as if you're saying, I'm not, you know, you're not really from here if you start asking them about their origins. But in Israel, it's very different. Everyone has an extraordinary origin story and a community to be proud of. And it's like how we sniff each other out.
I'm not that way at all. I get it why people could feel that way. Maybe because they can blend in more than I can. I've never been able to blend in anywhere I go. So it's never been a problem for me. My dad's Jamaican. My mother's from the Midwest. Both sides, we have a legacy of slavery. Yeah, that's my background. I think people have to be very comfortable and open with who they are and where they come from, because that's the best way to move forward. And the more you want to hide where you come from and who you are, and you got a chip on your shoulder, people can't ask you questions. It just hurts the ability to move forward.
We find out, where are you from? Where are your grandparents from? So tell me, who are the Druze community? What are you doing here?
What we do here. So in short, the Druze community is a new age, 1,000 years old religion. They came out of the Islam. They were in the mountains of Turkey, next to the Jewish Ashkenaz, by the way. And then Jewish Ashkenaz went to Europe, and the Druze actually went to Egypt to start this like really cool startup. They called it the Druze religion, which came and brought the concept of all...
It's cool that he said that because, Ashkenaz originally meant Turkey. If you look into the Bible, Ashkenaz didn't mean Germany originally, it meant Turkey. But the Jews of Turkey and also Italy continued moving north up into Germany and Poland. So that's absolutely true. The Ashkenazi Jews used to be in the same area.
All religions are right. And God gave the Jews Moses as the prophet, the Muslims Muhammad, the Christians Jesus, the Hindus, and et cetera, and it gave them a little bit of a glimpse of what he wants. And all religions are right. When they got to Egypt in the beginning, they liked it, the Caliphate there, but then they realized that there's one thing they don't like here. They believe in reincarnation, meaning that another prophet can come after Muhammad, and then they started killing and slaughtering them, and then they had to close the religion, make it secret. That was the origins of why it became secret in the beginning, and then they even closed the doors. And they went and they started living in Lebanon, Syria, Israel.
That's the danger of Islam. Islam is very intolerant to other religions, and Islam, and this doesn't mean all Muslims, doesn't mean every Muslim, Islam everywhere, but Islam teaches violence against those. And you can find violent verses in the Bible. You can find violent verses in other religions. The difference is nobody teaches that today. No Orthodox Jew is saying, hey, let's go and practically punish people according to the laws of the Bible. That's not, and even when it was a thing, it was done by a court. It was done by a court, and when Mashiach comes, we will clarify exactly how to be carried out. But the Muslim world, they Panay and Poige boy, go and take it for yourself is like practice. Any Muslim who sees someone doing what they consider a sin, they're allowed to go and kill that person. It's really a shame. Think about it. Just because they believe in reincarnation, maybe they didn't know this, but Jews believe in reincarnation too. That's a central part of Judaism is reincarnation. Every single Jewish sect believes in reincarnation. So it's so strange that when they found out about that, they started killing the Jews. That's really terrible.
And when you say close the doors, there is no way to convert into the Druze religion. Not even if you ask 3 times persistently.
Not even if you're George Clooney and you're married to a Druze woman and you will beg they won't let you in.
There's no way to have protectia, special connections, a little bit
No,
of
no.
Greece.
Is George
There's no
Clooney
law.
married to a
So
Druze?
you can't.
Let me look
There's
this
no lock
up.
for it. There's nothing. It's just sealed.
So the Druze community, indigenous to the Middle East, and begins essentially as a splinter group from Islam
Yeah.
that splits off from Islam around.
under the-
Okay, from out of Shia Islam around what period?
Around 1,000 years ago.
Around 1,000 years ago. And since then, they've been living across the Middle East. And I don't want to stick labels on things because labels are a very European invention. Wait, what are you? Are you a religion? Are you a nation? Are you an But how do at least the Druze in Israel conceive of themselves? A religion, an ethnicity, a nation? I mean, if we have to put European labels on them.
So the Druze are an ethnicity and a religion. They see themselves as we are the Druze, and our religion is kind of similar to the Jews.
Wow. So yeah, he wasn't using that as an example. George Clooney is married to Amal Clooney, originally named Alu Muddin, whose father is Lebanese Druze and whose mother is Sunni Muslim. So she has that's interesting. It says a Sunni Muslim mother. Now Muslims go by the father. So according to Muslims, she would not be a Muslim. Her father's Druze, therefore she is Druze. Amal was born to a Jewish family on her father's side and is described as belonging to the Jewish community. They married in 2014. Jewish tradition passes to the father. Amal is widely referred to as Druze. So yeah, he is married to a Druze woman. That's so interesting. Now in Judaism, it goes by the mother, which is different from Islam and different from the Druze. It goes by the mother for a lot of reasons. I'm not going to get into right now. So he is really married to a Druze. Now, something else they were talking about, are the Druze an ethnicity? Are they a nation? Are they religion? So that pretty much goes along with all ancient cultures. Originally, there was no distinction between a state, a nation, an ethnicity, and a religion because they're all wrapped out in one. If you were a member of a certain ethnicity, you were also a member of that nation. You were also a member of that religion. You were also a member of that state. It was everything rolled into one. Only with modern times it began to be filtered out. You could be a member of one religion, but be of a different ethnicity. You could be a member of a state, but not be a part of the ethnicity. And that's how we have it today. You can be an American. You can be an American no matter what your ethnicity, no matter your religion. You could be a part of the American nation, but not want to be part of the state. In other words, you don't have to actually participate in the government, but you can feel you're a part of the American idea, the American enterprise. So only with modern times, all these ideas separated.
And
more similarities than just the rhyme in the name.
Oh yeah, I think one of the reasons that the Druze and the Jews got along so well because they both have the same kind of mentality of we just want to live our life. They're not missionaries. It's very hard to become a Jew. They make it hard even. They're not trying to recruit.
Not as hard as you.
The Druze even took it one step further.
Yeah.
So they're not trying to convert anyone. They're
You
not
could say
trying
it's exclusive.
exclusive. They're not trying to
Converting to
control anyone.
Judaism,
Live their
if you
life
do
peacefully. So I think
Orthodox,
when they both
it
met,
typically
they're
takes
wow,
at
that's
least
so
a
cool.
year,
Like,
more like 2 or 3
we can live
years.
together, we can respect each other, and that helped them bring that alliance that they have.
There was just this immediate click where in the period building up to Israel's independence, they both realized that they were natural allies against a region where there is still that imperial impulse to impose Islam, to impose Arab culture. Both the Jews and the Druze, you're saying, have this.
Yeah, the Islamic civilization is definitely imperialist and colonialist. It's amazing that they've tried to convince the world that they are the inhabitants of every land where there's Muslims. They're the original inhabitants, which is crazy because, again, Arabs are only native to the coastal region of Arabia.
Have this mentality that is basically liberal in saying, look, live and let live, leave us alone, let us do our stuff, give us our rights, and all sababa.
It's actually the prime example I heard from my grandfather. When my grandfather was in Israel and the Jews started coming back to their lands, he had 2 brothers. They came from Syria. 3 brothers came from Syria. His 2 older brothers had wives and children. And then what happened is in the Arab world, the Muslim world came and said, they sent a message like out there, all the Arabs get out of the land. We're going to come. We're going to kill all the Jews. We're going to genocide them from the river to the sea. And then you can come back after 2 or 3 days, maybe a week or 2, and you can even take their lands.
This is during Israel's War of Independence.
This is during Israel's War of Independence.
The Druze, you're saying, receive a tip-off. Arab armies are coming. They are coming to liberate Palestine, quote unquote, from the river to the sea. They're going to murder all the Jews. You probably want to step out of the way. And that's how we ended up with a lot of the Palestinian refugees.
Exactly. So the same story, only now hearing it from the Druze side. So the Druze got the same memo. Like, I didn't know they had working relationship, that were living in the same village.
And they
etc.
didn't gadoodle and wait for the Jews to be killed.
So the two brothers of my grandfather, they had wife and children. And they came and told them, his name was Mansur. I'm named after him. Tell Mansur, Isma, war is coming. They want to kill all the Jews. We don't know how is it going to go, but it's not safe for us to stay here. We're going to go back to our mountain in Syria, weather it out, see what happens, and come back later. My grandfather came and told me, listen, I'm not going to hold it against you. You have a wife and you have children. I understand, but I'm staying here and I'm staying with the Jews and I'm not going to fight with the Jews because they are my allies. And many Jews saw the same thing because they said the Muslims have been trying to genocide us for the last 1,000 years. Now the Jews come and we actually see that we can live with them. They want to live with us. They're not trying to change that.
It's not a coincidence that both the Kurds and the Druze are mountain people, because if you want to protect yourself, the best place to be is up in the mountains. It's harder for people to get there. It's more out of the way. And you have a warning. It takes people time to climb up from a low elevation. So presumably you can see them coming and you either have time to run away or to fight. So it makes sense.
You're going to respect them. So he said, I'm staying here and I'm staying with the Jews. And he stayed, and then the borders got closed after that, and Israel got established, and then many people got stuck outside, and now they want to come back, and etc. Funny enough, the Jews never asked to come back. They kind of realized, okay, you know what? Could have stayed. We decided to go. All right, now we live here, But anyway.
Interesting. You're saying that in 48, during the same dislocation that caused the Palestinian refugee crisis, there were also Druze who heeded the warnings of the Arab armies to get out. They went, but they don't consider themselves UNRWA refugees now. They've simply resettled.
They resettled where they are.
He's taking a low-key dig at the Palestinians, so-called Palestinians.
Want to come back. It's not necessarily coming back. It's just they hate the Jews so much, or they're feeling so offended and hurt that the Jews won that war that they tried to bring on them. So they're kind of holding into that. But it's not necessarily, because they could have settled anywhere they went and built a life. But instead of settling there and building a life, they kept holding to that and inciting for terrorism and I don't know what. They took it in a different way than the Druze. So some Druze stayed here, some Druze stayed there, and my grandfather never met his...
The difference is Islam. That's it. Islam, it's an Islamic land. How dare these non-Muslims come and take it? Also, it's a strike at the Muslim ego, because Islam teaches that it's the final revelation and that all the other religions must bow before it and that eventually everyone will become Muslim. So for them, it's like a personal affront. How dare these Jews come and take over their own land? How dare?
Met his brothers. We used to go to the Shouting Mountain. I don't know if you ever heard that. So there's a mountain that you can see in Majd al-Shams where it got split. So you have the Syrian side and the Israeli side. And back then there wasn't Facebook, Telegram, video calls. So we used to drive for a picnic once or every few months, and we stand there and then we'll hold a megaphone with binoculars and we'll see our relatives from Syria. They'll see us. And we'll start shouting to each other. And that's how he used to talk with his brothers and his family. I just had a grandchild. Oh, really? He lifts him up. We were looking up, look, oh, he looks like you, etc., etc. And that was literally our childhood, keeping in touch with them. There was no hatred. There was no anger. There was just, okay, that's our life there. That's our life here. We made our decisions. We chose to stand and fight with the Jews, and we build a future with them. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, because the Druze and the Jews is the prime example of coexistence, the prime example. And I feel like people don't talk enough about it because many people don't know about the Druze because they kept to themselves. The Druze had the same option like any Muslim who was in this land, any Arab. The Jews came back and they were thankful. And the Brits came and told them, listen, guys, we're going to split this land. You get this, you get that. The Jews said, thank you. Thank you. We really finally have...
That offer from the United Nations in 47 was a terrible deal. It was on a minority of the land.
Yeah.
It didn't include Jerusalem. Most of it was desert. It had nearly 50% Arab population. But there were still Jews who were trapped in the displaced persons camps in Europe. And they said, okay, we'll take it.
Thank you. There's swarms. There's malaria. Thank you. We'll deal with that. Thank you.
There's malaria, but at least it's our malaria.
Yeah, exactly. We'll try it. So then the Jews came and met with their neighbors. And they said, let's live together. The Muslims said, no, we're going to kill you all. Druze came and said, yeah, let's make this our joint country. Let's build our future together here. You respect me, I respect you. You don't try to convert me, I don't try to convert you. We can live together. And they made this beautiful blood alliance, blood covenant, you call it, that until today...
It's one of the problems with our friends, the Christians in Israel, is that they're trying to convert the Jews. And every single time I've gone to Jerusalem, the old city of Jerusalem, there's always missionaries standing out front trying to convert every Jew that walks by. It's really not good for the friendship with the Christians. It's really not good. I really wish they would make a policy that you're not allowed to do it. I think eventually as Israel gets stronger, and Israel's only getting stronger, they'll have to make some sort of promise when they go to Israel. They will not try to convert anyone. It's very insulting. It's very insulting to us very insulting. I really wish Christians would stop. If you want to do it in America or wherever, but don't do it in Israel. Don't try to make us be like you. Please. I really wish they would stop. Anyway.
Today, it's one of the most loved communities in Israel. I think sometimes I meet Jews. I just met a taxi driver and hear that I'm a Jew. He told me that he loved Druze more than he loved Jews.
Yeah, the Druze universally loved, I would say.
Just tell me.
The Druze have a universally good image amongst Jews and amongst Israelis.
He can't pay for the taxi ride. I'll drive him anywhere. If a Jew will tell me, I was like, listen. So you go to a Druze village, you see more Israeli flags than in a Jewish city. So they really blended in the society, in the community. There is things to work, of course, there's always.
Yeah.
But that's a great example that Israel is looking to live with anyone that is living in this country, as long as they try to live in peace. You've never heard of a suicide bomber coming from the Druze. You've never heard of a Druze walking to a mall and shouting Akbar and decided, they use the word Akbar, it's in Arabic, of going and shooting people. They have no incentive to do that. They're not trying to convert anyone. They're not trying to genocide anyone. And it's a prime example, I think.
And I think that's why the Druze community is so beloved in Israel, because the Jewish community looks and says, you had an opportunity to side with the broader Arab world, with the big ones, with the bullies, against us, a minority. But you decided to do something that other minorities maybe haven't done in the Middle East, which is to form a strategic alliance with another minority out of a same history of persecution, out of a same commitment to the fundamentally liberal value of living and let living. I want to dwell just a little bit more into the question of identity. We said that the Druze religion, ethno-religion, is an offshoot from Shia Islam. Arabic is your native tongue.
Yeah.
Now, I know it is a question within the Druze community whether or not you are Arabs. I mean, my commander in the army was a
very
colonel.
important.
He was Druze, spoke Arabic.
Are Jews Arabs or not?
Many of you are called Mansur.
Yeah.
And I asked him at one point, are you an Arab? And he looked at me like he was going to hit me. He almost took offense at the suggestion that he was an Arab. But I know that many do. They say, look, we speak Arabic. We're not like the Kurds who say, okay, Kurds, different, non-Arabs.
Yeah.
They do consider themselves Arabs. So are you an Arab?
Yes.
So before we hear his answer, let's deal with the facts. What are the facts? Now, who you identify with is subjective, because Arabs are not only an ethnicity because of their colonialist expansionism over time, they're also a nation, a multi-ethnic nation. Even though they see themselves as all being one people, they're truly not. And actually, in Hebrew, Arab, the name is from the Semitic languages. It actually means mixed. So the Arabs are really mixed, although they don't see themselves that way. But let's look and see what our research says. Are Arabs and Jews genetically distinct or not? What population are Jews most closely related to? Is it Gulf Arabs? Is it North African Arabs? Or is it some other people entirely?
In short, Druze are genetically distinct from many Arab populations. They are most closely related to Levantine populations like Lebanese and Syrians rather than Gulf Arabs or North African Arabs. This distinctiveness comes from a long history and relative isolation in the Levant region.
So you're saying essentially that the Jews are more closely related to Syrians and Lebanese Christians than they are to North African Arabs and Gulf Arabs. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The Druze are indeed more closely to Levantine populations like Syrians, Christian, due to their shared ancient ancestry region. This makes them genetically distinct from Gulf Arabs.
Can you give me a full list of Levantine peoples? What does that even mean?
The term Levantine refers to the people from the Levant, a historical region in the Eastern Mediterranean. The Levant generally includes modern countries like Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Israel, and Palestine. So Levantine peoples typically include Lebanese, including various religious and ethnic communities like Maronites, Druze, there's Syrian, Palestinians. These groups share historical and cultural ties, and their ancestry is often closely linked due to the region's long interwoven.
Okay, thanks a lot. So we can firmly say, based on facts, that at least according to DNA, the Jews are not Arabs. They are not Arabs. They're more closely related to Turks or to ancient Canaanites, to Syrians or to Arab Christians. And remember, these are all groups that were in this area before the Arabs came. And the Arabs came from Arabia, from the coastland of Arabia. They're not native to that part of the Middle East. So I think we can put this to bed. Now, I would imagine he's going to say that he feels like he's an Arab. And you got to understand, it's a minority. You have the religion and you have the ethnicity, and you're already missing the religion because you're not a Muslim. So obviously you want to say, well, I'm Arab like you. I'm just not a Muslim. So I imagine he's going to say there that yes, we are Arabs. But I think most young people, and I think if they're allowed to live freely and answer freely, they're going to say, no, we're not Arabs, because they're not. They're genetically distinct from Arabs. Speaking Arabic, does that really make you an Arab? I speak English. Am I Englishman? Right? Just speaking a language does not make you really necessarily part of that nation. It's also cultural and DNA and historical and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the academic answer and I'll tell you the cultural inside of Israel kind of answer.
Yeah,
The
I want to hear your
answer-
personal answer as well.
The answer is yes, we are Arabs. We came out of the Arab world. We have the same genetic kind of, DNA.
See
Just
how
like
he
the Jews that
hesitated?
came from that world as well. They were living all together. We came
Because-
from a world. We
because he knows it's-
grew up in the same house.
Because he knows it's not really true. It's not really true. It's sort of true. Everybody in the Middle East came from some shared ancestor, as all humans came from a shared ancestor, but he knows it's not true. That's why he's kind of hesitating. But also, it looks good for Israel. First of all, it looks good for Druze to say we're Arabs. That means they can fit more readily in a Muslim society where they're often rejected. But it also looks good for Israel because it says Israel, hey, Israel will say to the world, Israel, listen, we're Israel and we don't have anything against Arabs. In fact, we love Arabs. We just want to stop the terrorists. So when you see that an Arab group and the Jews are so close in Israel, that's proof of that, right? But I don't think it's really true.
Households, similar, or just a different religion. The thing is, if you ask a Druze in Syria, in Lebanon, of course I'm in here. In Israel, growing in this country, they became sometimes a negative connotation to Arabs that came from the Arabs themselves. So the Druze wanted to detach themselves. We're not the ones that want to commit suicide bombings. We're not the ones that are trying to murder all the time and to oppress all the time. So they kind of said, like, if I will go in the street and someone will ask me, hey, are you an Arab? He might think that I'm with that. So they want to say, no, we're not like them. We're Druze. We're different. So with that came that movement of people kind of detaching from that term in that context.
In order to differentiate yourselves from the movement that is trying to eliminate the state of Israel in the name of the
The Arab.
broader Arab.
Yeah, exactly that. And there was a lot of also negative connotation, like, kind of stuff. So they wanted to, like they said, that we're not like them. We're different. So that's why they detached. So you'll find younger Druze, not all, but you'll find some telling, we're not Arab, we're Druze. But that you'll find it mostly in Israel. You won't find it. When I started doing Hasbara, I realized that it's important for the world to understand that I am an Arab, because the Jews are coming from the Arab world, and that Israel is treating all of its citizens equally. Arabs, Christians, Muslims, doesn't matter what, treat them equally. So I knew the world would not understand what's it. They think I'm talking about druids, maybe running in the forest, hugging trees. I had that sometimes. Yeah.
Wait, this isn't an episode with a druid officer in the special forces? This is not what I prepped for.
The shaman. Yeah, no, that's not it. So yeah, we are, if you'll ask, let's say, religious elders, they'll, yeah, we're Arabs. We are one of the group that came from the Arab world, and we have our own religion and our own, ethnicity.
Are you a Zionist?
Oh yeah, of course. That's what I think people don't understand. Growing in Israel, Zionist was never like a word that you used to us. That means that you are believing in the state of Israel. You believe in the right for the Jews to come back to their
If it was America, we would say, are you patriotic?
country. This is their land. They were here way before us. And I'm so glad that I have these cool neighbors that I can share this land with. So for me to look at it, anywhere that I go, I never really categorize myself, I'm a Zionist. I'm an Israeli. Even in Elat, I would not even think I'm a Druze, he's a Jew. It was like, we're all from that was kind of the thing. It was never a big thing. Outside of Israel, people started making a big deal out of it. And you start wondering.
Are you an Arab Zionist?
Because Zionist has become a code word for Jew. You can't say I hate Jews in 2025, at least not in the Western world. In Arabic, you can say it, and you can find lots of speeches on Memri.com with the translated speeches and interviews and things like that. But it's not accepted at all in the Western world to say, I hate the Jews. So they have to say, I hate the Zionists, because it doesn't sound as bad. But a Zionist is simply a person who is basically patriotic for the one and only Jewish state. There's really no way to be anti-Semitic and a Zionist. At least it's very difficult. And it's very difficult to truly be pro-Jewish and be completely anti-Zionist, meaning Zionist in the most extreme sense. in the most relaxed sense, meaning simply wanting that Jews should be able to have a state.
I guess so.
So help me understand this,
Yeah.
because
Never thought about it that way, but yeah, I guess so.
there are many glad to be part of the process of helping you figure out your
Yeah,
identity.
thank you.
And talk through the issues. Because there are many Arabs, citizens of Israel, who will say, I cannot identify with Israel as a Jewish state because it means that by definition, the state does not include me. I cannot salute a flag that has the Star of David because it's not my symbol. I cannot stand for Hatikva, the national anthem, which speaks about a Jewish heart, because I don't have a Jewish heart. I'm an Arab. Zionism is against me. And so you have many Arabs in Israel who will not stand for the national anthem. And yet I look at the Druze community, which is so fiercely patriotic and so obviously Zionist that you even have Zion written on the baseball cap
Yeah.
that you're wearing now.
My friends had.
And
Yeah.
I want to understand how is that possible? Why do you think it is so easy for the Druze community to identify as being Zionists, Israeli patriots, identify with the vision of a Jewish state, even though you are not Jewish, whereas other Arabs find that so difficult? That dissonance is just too jarring for them.
So this is a big problem in the West. It ultimately, I believe, it will bring down the West, is the issue of multiculturalism. There's the state model, the idea of the modern state was based on the nation. Nation is a body of people who share a certain history, a certain ethnicity, right? And there's always been people who came from other places and moved where they were a minority. Sometimes they integrated with those people, or maybe they stayed separate. But regardless, the modern state, it separates itself from ethnicity, that you can be an American, doesn't matter your ethnicity. I can be a German. I can go be a German citizen, and I'm considered German, even if I have not a drop of German blood. The issue is multiculturalism. When you have people who are part of a country, but they don't feel any kinship with it. And Israel has dealt with this problem first. And this will bring down the West if it continues like it is, because right now it basically works. The way it works is that if people come in from other places, and instead of integrating into the fabric of the life there, instead of being, if not friendly, at least neutral on the indigenous culture, the indigenous people, the indigenous style of life, ways of life, they're even hostile to it. They come from another place and they want to make the place they arrived the same as where they come from. And this is a big problem.
I think there's two main reasons for that. One is theology, one is culture. From a theology perspective, the Druze detach themselves from, let's say, earthly possessions like politics and governments and stuff. I think that's like, stuff that are, let others play these games. We want to focus more on living in our land, our family, our values, our religion.
Right, there are no Druze political parties now.
You're not allowed, technically, by the religion to form a country. So they come and say, any government that comes.
That's interesting that according to their religion, they can't have their own country. That's kind of interesting. Why not?
And decides to be over this land, as long as they respect us, we'll respect them. As long as they treat us fairly, we treat them fairly. Let them play their own politics. We'll pay taxes. We'll go along with that, etc. But we're not interested in having our own country. It's not, we don't want that. We don't care about that.
Fascinating. You basically got this ideological connection between the Druze and, I'll say something provocative here, anti-Zionist Jews whose identity is based around building an identity in the diaspora that is not based around a
So
form.
according to what I was able to find, it says the Jews' religious teachings emphasize loyalty to the ruling power. This is based on a principle of tekiah also means deception. So it's interesting. They consider political neutrality a religious obligation. In other words, the Jews believe the time is not right for open and political or spiritual dominance. Some teachings allude to a future return of Al-Hakim B. Amir Allah, the hidden Imam, who ushered in justice and truth. Until then, they must remain hidden, humble, and loyal.
Of a nation state. You are like those people who say, we don't want to have a country of our own. Actually, all we want is to be equal citizens and a minority.
Yeah.
That's part of the concept of being a Druze.
Live and let live. That's like exactly it. Let us live our life. We'll respect you. You won't tax, as long as it's fair. And
But unlike the anti-Zionist Jews, not ganging up together with the Islamic fundamentalists.
yeah, they win. They won.
Sorry for insulting.
No,
you.
It's kind of messed up that he took a dig. Yeah, there are Jews that aren't Zionists, but those who actually go to Iran and pair up with the jihadis is very small. It's really one small group, about somewhere around 800 people worldwide.
completely the other way. And now, culturally wise, you understand that this is a Jewish country. Jerusalem is a Jewish word. It's like they were here. This is their country. And finally, they managed to come back. They got kicked out of this country several times in the most horrific way, but they kept and came back. It's admirable. So it's their country. We respect it. And this country is so good to us. Literally, the life of an Israeli Arab is better than any other Arab in the Middle East. And I know it for a fact because I have relatives living in Syria and Lebanon. I know Muslims and Christians and Druze living in these countries that are friends of mine that talk to me. And they all say, I wish I could live in Israel. They all say, I wish, because they see how their government is oppressing them. They see how they're fighting for their lives. I had to help rescue several relatives of mine to flee from Syria and to go to Germany. And I'll give you the best example of actually how did they become perfect citizens of Germany. My mom once calls me. I find my mom one day talking to relatives of mine from Syria and Lebanon. I was an officer in a top secret unit in the army. And I came and I told Mom.
Your secret's safe with me.
Yes. I said, Mom, you cannot talk with people from Syria. You're putting them in danger. You're putting us. You cannot. Right now, with what I'm doing, stop it. Okay? Habibi, I stop. I finished the army service. I go traveling the world to Africa, South America, going around.
Classic Israeli experience.
Classic Israeli. Yeah. And I come back and my mom tells me, listen, you're done with the army, right? I say, yes. Your relatives are being killed right now in Syria. Remember your grandfather, 2 brothers? So their grandchildren, your age, one of them got kidnapped by ISIS, stabbed, he fought his way out, ran away, managed to survive. The other one, ISIS want to kill him and Muslim kill him, and the Syrian government want to kill him. They want to take him to the army, and what they do with the Druze people, they basically send them first to be...
And that's the same thing, right? The government right now in Syria is run by former members of Al-Qaeda.
become like mine detectors.
Is that true? The Assad regime uses the Syrian Druze as cannon for...
Oh, yeah, big time. From his village, 250 young men like him were forced to go to the army. None of them came back alive. Either they got killed by the Muslim brothers inside, they killed him one night, they don't like him because, he's a... Or they send him to, there's a sniper there, send the Druze guy.
What a difference between sending them as cannon fodder and in Israel, where they are spectacularly overrepresented in the officer class.
Israel, that gave me goosebumps. 12 innocent Druze children from Muslims. That's a Druze village that actually, controversially, Israeli, not Israeli, we don't serve in the army. 12?
Because just a little bit of context for people who haven't been following too closely, there are the Druze community in Israel, and we'll unpack this in a little bit, who live around the Mount Carmel area, Daliat al-Carmel, or Sphere, where you're from. And there are the Druze of the Golan Heights, in the territory that Israel conquered from Syria in that defensive War 67, right at the top. We'll get onto the differences in just a moment, but
12 Druze children got killed.
I just got to say, it's a little bit over the top. He's almost like a propagandist. He overdoes it a little bit. It makes sense because he was a spokesman for the Israeli government, but he overdoes it just a little bit.
And Israel literally is willing to go to war for them. You know how that made the Druze feel?
How?
That we are part of this country. That it's not just if a kid from Tel Aviv get hit or a Jewish kid get hit. A minority group that doesn't even scratch the 200,000 in Israel, in a faraway remote village. And Hezbollah shot them, and Israel came and said, enough. You killed our own children. We're going to take you down. And they're willing almost to go to war. They assassinated the leader of the second command of Hezbollah. So just to show you what's the difference. In Syria, they use you as cannon fodder. In Israel, they are willing to go to war for you because you are with them and they are with you. It's a blood covenant, in the army, everywhere, we're shoulder by shoulder. There's no other community in Israel that have that tie.
I just want to go back to what you said earlier about how it made the Druze in Israel feel when 12 children were murdered by an Iranian rocket fired by Hezbollah. And Israel didn't say, small minority group in the corner of the country doesn't interest us. The whole country was on its feet saying these were Israeli children.
Yeah.
Because the people spoke about how the Druze are fierce patriots and overrepresented in the IDF officer corps. But actually the story of the Druze in the Golan Heights is different from the Druze around the Mount Carmel area.
Oh, yeah.
Many of those have not taken Israeli citizenship. We spoke of those children as being Israeli children. I don't know how many were actually Israeli citizens or what their nationality is. Really, it doesn't matter to me. They're under Israeli jurisdiction and sovereignty. We have responsibility for them. But maybe you can just tell me a little bit about the differences between the Druze within 1967 Israel, the Druze in the Golan Heights, and how this conflict with Hezbollah has maybe shifted perceptions, and that Druze who didn't want to take Israeli citizenship in the Golan Heights, look at how the country came around them and rallied to their defense, and maybe reconsidered what's been going on there. Tell me the historical differences and what's been going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Is willing to go to war for them. You know how that made the Druze feel?
How?
That we are part of this country. That it's not just if a kid from Tel Aviv get hit or a Jewish kid get hit. A minority group that doesn't even scratch the 200,000 in Israel, in a faraway remote village. And Hezbollah shot them, and Israel came and said, enough. You killed our own children. We're going to take you down. And they're willing almost to go to war. They assassinated the leader of the second command of Hezbollah. So just to show you what's the difference. In Syria, they use you as cannon fodder. In Israel, they are willing to go to war for you because you are with them and they are with you. It's a blood covenant, in the army, everywhere, we're shoulder by shoulder. There's no other community in Israel that have that tie.
I just want to go back to what you said earlier about how it made the Druze in Israel feel when 12 children were murdered by an Iranian rocket fired by Hezbollah. And Israel didn't say, oh, small minority group in the corner of the country doesn't interest us. The whole country was on its feet saying these were Israeli children.
Yeah.
Because people spoke about how the Druze are fierce patriots and overrepresented in the IDF officer corps. But actually the story of the Druze in the Golan Heights is different from the Druze around the Mount Carmel area.
Oh, yeah.
Many of those have not taken Israeli citizenship. We spoke of those children as being Israeli children. I don't know how many were actually Israeli citizens or what their nationality is. Really, it doesn't matter to me. They're under Israeli jurisdiction and sovereignty. We have responsibility for them. But maybe you can just tell me a little bit about the differences between the...
And this is another problem of the Israeli government. For years and years, there was talk of handing back land for peace. It's never worked. Now you could say Egypt, could be, but in general, it doesn't work. So there's talk of handing, even a couple weeks ago, there's talk of handing back the Golan Heights to Syria. Now with the Druze October 7th that happened just this past week, there's no way that will ever happen. But think about it. You're a Druze, the Israelis come in, they take over, and you still have family on the other side in Syria. Why would you enthusiastically sign up for Israeli citizenship? It could be tomorrow they decide to give it back to Syria. And now what are you going to do? Are you going to run for your life to Israel? What are you going to do? So they were left in a precarious situation, an impossible situation.
Druze within 1967 Israel, the Druze in the Golan Heights, and how this conflict with Hezbollah has maybe shifted perceptions, and that Druze who didn't want to take Israeli citizenship in the Golan Heights, look at how the country came around them and rallied to their defense, and maybe reconsidered what's been going on there. Tell me like the historical differences and what's been going on.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
recent weeks.
Well, you kind of nailed it. There is a fundamental minor difference, but there is what you see in front of you, what's clear to the public, and there's like the politics behind. The Druze in the Golan Heights, in these villages, Shams and two other villages around, were part of Syria. And then one day a war came and Israel took the Golan Heights, that strategic place. We cannot give it to the hand of these guys. They want to kill us. We're not going to let it happen. Now you have Druze there that literally the village got split in two. They have his brother is there and he's living here. And you see him, like literally there's a fence going between these two towns. And you can still see the part of Majd al-Shams that is in Syria. And then you had many politicians in Israel every second day talking about, give back the Golan Heights, don't give back the Golan Heights. So the Druze there, the elders, they were very wise and said, guys, we don't want to be a victim of any political movement here. So what's going to happen is we're not going to publicly go and say that we are full on with Israel and then tomorrow they give us back and they just slaughter us in Syria. Or they will even kill our family right now. So they told Israel, sorry, we cannot join your army because of these ties. And Israel respected that. And then they started realizing that life in Israel is way better. Like if you go, I have relatives there. You go and talk to them, tell you, hell no, I'm not going back.
I've been around. You see, there are Israeli health clinics around the place.
Health clinics, tourism, freedom of religion. Their daughters are safe. In Syria and Lebanon, ISIS and Nusra and the government are raiding these villages, kidnapping them, killing them.
Yeah, it's a damn good thing we didn't give the Golan Heights to Syria when the world was being asked to do so.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, that's just the absurdity of the situation now, when all the headlines around that horrific killing of the 12 children and media would insist on saying Israeli-occupied Golan Heights and foreign governments say Israeli-occupied Golan Heights because the territory was part of Syria for a total of, 21 years of an independent Syria. It's like, well, like literally, what do you want? Do you want us to give this territory back to Bashar
Please don't.
al-Assad? No, of course we're not going to.
No, even the Druze there will tell you, please no. They will run into Israel. They know that the life there is terrible. They're treated there badly. But they also know that they need to look into the future. What's going to happen in the future? So they say, we're going to try to stay to the Druze principle of being neutral and working the land, working our ground. When I was there now, my relative, his name is Jihad. It scares the hell out of my friend. I told him, we're going to go meet Jihad. Two Jewish friends coming. What? Yeah, I'm going to take you to meet my Jihad. What? Yeah, it's my cousin. His name is Jihad, but we call him Juju. It's cuter. When he was working in Taglit.
That is an excellent nickname for Jihad. I have to say, if you speak about Palestinian Islamic Juju, that definitely sounds less scary than Palestinian
Way less
Islamic
scary.
Jihad.
He actually changed it because of the Americans. He was doing Taglid kind of trips, teaching them kayaking and everything, and they get scared shit when he's doing the snippling with them. Like he's tying the rope. Oh, my name is Jihad. Jihad is going to throw me down the cliff. So Juju. My name is Juju. So anyway, he's a farmer. He's a real farmer, a gentleman, philosopher. And he took us and he showed us tomato, the best tomato we had in our life. And he said, the seed for this tomato, the secret for that tree came from my great-grandfather to his grandfather, to his son, to my grandfather, to me. And I'm always trying to perfect it. And then you realize the connection that they have with the land. It's literally it's how they get the food from, is how they feed their family, is this art of working that land. So the Druze are very connected to the land. So when Muslims, they said, let's...
Yeah, that's most people traditionally. Most people were farmers up until even recently. Let's say up until about 150 years ago, Industrial Revolution, all that kind of stuff.
Play this political game once a year. We'll go to this demonstration. We don't really mean it, but we're just going to stay here in Israel.
A demonstration.
Then once a year, go and do a demonstration like about the politics in Syria, showing involvements and all kind of like, you know, silly stuff, showing involvement with the Syrian regime. But...
And you're saying that that identification with the regime was essentially performative?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just to keep up appearance.
Oh, yeah. I think everybody kind of knows that, but there's just kind of, it's, you know,
Okay.
it's comfortable. And Israel respects that. I find it very interesting. Israel respects this. We understand you, and we're not.
You do what you need to do.
Yeah. A lot of the Druze in Israel actually didn't like it that much. Because some of the Druze in Israel says, no, guys, wake up. You know what's happening there, you know, because let's say if that rocket would have landed on not the Shams Druze, but let's say on my villages, you would have had a battalion of Druze right now going and probably solving the entire war in the Middle East in 2 weeks. They would have just probably went to Lebanon and finished the war, as they know how to do, you know. If you remember that story when they kidnapped the Druze, so I had a friend from the Shabak, a very good friend of mine, that came and told me the story from his perspective. He said, one day we wake up, we get a phone call that there's a Druze teenager that got kidnapped by Hamas in the West Bank. So they call everybody to the war room. It's like, oh my God, this is going to be the next Gilad. We're going to end up 3-4 years from now. It's terrible. This is terrible. That was the one when one kidnapped Israeli was like a huge thing. Now we have 240 guys left.
251 taken off.
251, insane.
A lot of people don't know.
So as they're sitting in
a lot of people don't know that historically there were clashes between the Jews, the Samaritans, and the Jews. There were, and many people died. There's actually pogroms that were launched by the Druze in the past and the Samaritans in the past against the Jews, believe it or not. So they're fierce warriors. They can fight. It's a good thing we're all on the same side now. The Samaritans, the Druze, the Jews, especially in Israel.
Sitting in the war room and everybody, the Mossad, the Shabak, and suddenly get a phone call, guys, stand down. What do you mean? The Druze went and brought him back. I said, what? That's a Shabak guy. He told me, we're like, what? Are you kidding me? He said, yeah, a bunch of Druze Shabak went and brought it back. The Druze just humbled us. Like the Shabak even was sitting. And it's as if the Druze were kind of looking at the Shabak and they're like, guys, you're very cute. We like how you do it. It's cute, the uniform and everything that you do. We love it. You're pretty good. But step aside. Arabic. Let us speak the language of the Arab man. You guys don't know that language. They went in, brought him back in the same day.
So tell me, what changes have we seen then with the Golan Heights Druze once they realize, okay, the Golan Heights are never going back to Syria. No one wants it to go back to Syria. Has there been a shift in terms of them seeing themselves as more Israeli, viewing themselves as part of a single community?
It still doesn't address the point that these lines divide villages in half. They still have their family right across the line.
With the Druze around the Mount Carmel area. What are you noticing changing in recent weeks since that attack on Majams and the massive outpouring of sympathy and solidarity that they saw from the Israeli public and from the state?
Oh, yeah. I actually noticed that straight when I got there, because I've been there to that village many times. I have relatives there, very close ones. I came from Germany straight, and I went straight there. I made a post. 2 Jewish friends of mine came and said, we got a car, we'll take you. And we went there, and first I was very impressed by the message that the religious sheikhs brought down. Like my relative met with us and told us, Mansur, tell your friends, I don't know if they're media or not, they're influencers. And he said, tell them that we don't want the blood of our children to be used to promote any political agenda. If anything, we want the blood of our innocent children to be a symbol of why we should finish these wars, why we should aspire for peace. And I found that like beautiful and gave me goosebumps. I said, you know, I respect that completely. Probably a different message than what you've got from, let's say, the other.
Be able to speak like that when your own children have been killed is crazy. Like, I have children and I can't, God forbid, heaven forbid, I can't imagine how I'd feel. Terrible.
Other Jews in Israel in that particular scenario. But then, as we were talking, a little girl came to us, 12 years old. And she was shy, standing in my jihad. Came and she said, I want to talk to you guys. And she started speaking and she said, why are you killing us? And she said, I want this to go to Lebanon, to Hezbollah. Why are you killing us? You killed my friends.
Who is she talking to?
She was sending that message to Lebanon, to Syria, to Hezbollah, to all these radical jihadists out there. Says,
All
"Why-
those radical Druze out there.
all the radical Jews that are standing. Yeah, exactly. Why are you killing us?" And it was so hard. I was crying. And she said, "You killed my friends. They will never come back. What did you achieve?" And then she got really angry. She said, "You know what? I wish on you that you will start feeling what we felt. I wish that you get that same fate." And that was a girl. And then you saw there were a lot of kids there. I felt I was starting to feel like, wow, you know what? Israel is protecting us. Israel is the only home we have in the Middle East. And I feel like this might be a big shift there because they saw it. Because even standing there, I'm standing talking to her next to the football field. Well, the rocket just landed and killed these kids. And they were like, all the symbols of all the gore, the blood pieces all around, etc. I mean, they cleaned it, but they left like, ribbons, black ribbons. So I'm standing there, and suddenly I see behind me a family of settlers coming there with the whole attire and the whole children coming to show love for the Druze. And then I see a family of Tel Avivi people coming. And then I see Christians, and I see Muslim imams and Christian, priests and rabbis. And they saw the whole country. I even talked to my cousin there. He said, "We've never experienced such solidarity in our life." The whole village went out and started putting plastic chairs outside. All of the young men in the village were going outside giving coffee to people. It became like a whole village effort to welcome the overwhelming tidal wave of support that they got from Jews, Christians, Arabs. It doesn't matter. And only in Israel, you can have that. And I think everybody there clicked it like, this is unheard of. You will never. There's so many Druze who got murdered by ISIS, by Nusra, in Syria, hundreds, thousands, and no one will come and grief them from the other village. If anything, they will come to kill them in the future.
That's amazing. And I think the reason you get such an outpouring of solidarity from the Jewish community in this country.
Is it real? Is that true that hundreds or even thousands of Druze have been killed in the Syrian war? I guess that makes sense. Why not, right? So that's a good question. So let's see how many Druze have died so far in in the war here. Let's find out. How many Druze have died so far? Let's say in the last 20 years. In either wars or attacks, either in Lebanon or Syria.
Over the past 20 years, the Druze communities in Syria unfortunately faced significant violence. For example, in 2018, ISIS attacks in Syria's region resulted in at least 215 Druze deaths. More recently, in July 2025, clashes in Syria's Sweida province led to at least 116 deaths, many of them Druze civilians. There have also been smaller incidents, such as the 2015 Qalb Loze massacre, where around 20 to 24 Druze were killed by extremist groups. Overall, these events highlight the ongoing challenges and risks that the Druze community have faced in the region.
So is it true that there were attacks in Sweida only a few years ago? And how many Jews have died total? I heard 1,000 civilians died in this last blow up in Sweida in 2025. But can you confirm that? How many Druze have died in attacks in the last 20 years in Syria and Lebanon?
Yes, there were indeed significant attacks in Sweida, Syria in recent years. One of the most notable incidents occurred in July 2018 when ISIS-affiliated attackers launched suicide bombings and shootings that resulted in at least 258 deaths, mostly Druze civilians. More recently, in July 2025, clashes in Sweida province led to at least 516 deaths, many of whom were Druze civilians. In terms of the total number of Druze who have died in conflicts in Syria and Lebanon over the past 20 years, it's challenging to provide a precise number due to the complex and often chaotic nature of these conflicts, as well as varying reports. But these major incidents give a sense of the significant toll on the community.
If you had to guess, based on the data that you have available, which is everything on the internet, right? Can you guess? Can you approximate? Let's narrow it down. Let's say in the last 5 years, since that Al-Qaeda attack, you said the Al-Qaeda attack was in, what was that, 2015? Let's say that attack and after, would you estimate, based on all the info you have, how many Druze have been killed, civilians have been killed since that time?
Estimating the total number of Druze civilian deaths since 2015 is challenging due to inconsistent reporting, but we can look at some significant incidents to get an approximate idea. 2015 Qalb Loze massacre, around 20 to 24 Druze civilians were killed by the Al-Nusra Front in Idlib, Syria. 2018 Suwayda attacks in July 2018. ISIS-affiliated attackers killed at least 258 Druze civilians in Suwayda.
No, keep going. I want to know more about, you said those different incidents since 2015. Could you name each incident and give me a total and use your best guess, based on the lack of information based on having no real protection from the state, et cetera, how many people would you say, how many Druze would you say, civilians, were?
Since 2015, there have been several significant incidents impacting the Druze communities in Syria and Lebanon. Here's a summary of major events and estimated casualties. 2015, Qalb Loze massacre. In June 2015, in Syria's Idlib government, around 20 to 24 Druze civilians were killed by the al-Nusra Front. 2018, Sweida attacks. In July 2018, ISIS launched a coordinated attack on the Druze majority Suwayda province in Syria, resulting in at least 258 deaths, mostly Druze civilians. And 2025 Sweida clashes in Sweida province in Syria led to at least 516 deaths, many of them Druze civilians. These major incidents alone account for roughly 800 to 900 Druze civilian deaths. Considering smaller, less reported incidents and ongoing violence, it's likely that the total number of Druze civilians who have lost their lives in the last several years could be estimated at around 1,000 or more.
And what do you make of recent reports that say that there are at least 1,000 civilians that were killed in Suwayda, in the city, that were Druze? Can you see if you have anything to verify that?
It appears that recent reports do indicate a significant number of casualties in Sweida, with over 1,000 people reported killed in recent sectarian clashes. This aligns with the information about the July 2025 incidents in the region. These reports highlight the ongoing vulnerability of the Druze community in Syria and the intense violence they continue to face. If more detailed or updated information becomes available, it will help provide a clearer picture. But for now, it seems that these numbers are being reported by multiple sources.
Country is that we're feeling very isolated, very abandoned by people who in the West we thought were our allies and turned on us after October 7th. And here is a community that says, hey, we're even more patriotic than you are. And coexistence is possible with a different religion, with a different language. All it takes is not to want to kill the Jews, right?
Yeah.
And we can be best of buddies. And beyond that, I'll go back to this point about the Druze being phenomenally overrepresented in the IDF and the officers corps. Their schools are among some of the best performing schools in the country. The community are a community of, you can say, overachievers. I mean, you could say the Druze are the Jews of Israel, right?
That's an interesting,
It's funny because I was actually thinking that earlier, some of the things he was saying about the Druze, it's like the Druze are this ultra small, very tightly knit, very successful group. Maybe they are the Jews of Israel. That's funny.
And I'm wondering, how did that happen? How did it happen that this community to say, okay, we'll be equal citizens. Okay, but then you expect like the national average. How did they come to surpass the national average in so many of these metrics?
I think because Israel created a platform that is so welcoming and so healthy for minority groups that if they actually tie their identity with the land of Israel, they can be so blessed. Like one of the most educated groups in Israel.
What does that sound like? I will bless those that bless you, and I will curse you. Isn't that exactly what it sounds like?
Israel are the Christian Arabs. They're among the most educated group because they don't need to serve in the army and they get all the privileges like Israelis, and then they start.
They can go to med school at 18.
Yeah, by the age of 24, I'm an officer in the army. The guy's already a dentist and running his own clinic. So when you say, I'm not going to try to annihilate the Jews. I'm not going to try to support suicide bombing in kindergarten and schools and lynching and kidnapping. Instead, I'm going to try to live in this country. You're going to get one of the best opportunities that you can get in the world as an Arab, better than in Europe, way better.
Which, by the way, is extraordinary when you hear the anti-Zionist argument against Israel saying, okay, we know the Germans were a bit mean to you in Europe, but why did Palestinians have to pay the price for that? And you go, but hang on, the Arabs who are living in the Jewish state have by far the best quality of life, by far the most superior rights anywhere in the Middle East.
Yeah.
You have not paid a price for the persecution of Jews in Europe.
Yeah.
You have, in some perverse way, been prime beneficiaries in that the creation of a Jewish state and the absorption of Jewish immigration from around the region created a liberal democracy that is a far better place for any Arab to live than anywhere else around the region. And I want to go back to what you were saying before with this story that I think most of our viewers probably will not have heard of, about the kidnapping of a Druze teenager and how the Druze went in and saved him. And you said, we speak Arabic.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there are some people who speak about, we need to understand the Arab mentality and how the Arabs think in the region. And I always go to Okay, it sounds like a little bit racist. Okay, obviously they don't think the same. What does it mean to speak Arabic? But there is something that you get as an Arabic speaker, someone plugged into the same media landscape as well, the same historical.
This is the weakness of the Western culture. They think that everybody's the same. Everybody is not the same. Culture matters, language matters, the location matters. It's not racist to say, I'm talking with an Arab person, and I'm not talking about an assimilated Arab in a Western society. I'm talking about an Arab who lives in a majority Arab area with a majority Arab culture. It's just common sense to try to understand their culture if you want to be successful communicating with them. And that's anywhere. The Chinese person in America, the person of Chinese ethnicity or Arab ethnicity or Japanese ethnicity who lives in America and is an assimilated American is not the same as that person would be if they're living in China or they're living in Japan or they're living in Saudi Arabia. And that's not racist to say that. It's just common sense. And it's one of the biggest weaknesses of people that live in the West is that they get stuck in this kind of ostracized way of thinking that you're not allowed to consider religion as a motive of why somebody's doing something. Even if they tell you it's because of religion I'm doing this, you're supposed to ignore it. And you're not allowed to consider someone's culture or ethnicity or race or nationality on why they might be motivated to do something, which of course, the main motivator for people is always their culture and religion. If not the religion, their culture. Religion and culture kind of play off each other. They kind of bounce off one another. They mix. But that's the main reason people do what they're doing. It's not because of necessarily logical reasons. It's because their culture. I'll give you a perfect example. Certain communities are overwhelmingly misrepresented in certain occupations. For instance, Asians are said to be overrepresented. Let's not say Asians. Let's say Indians overrepresented in the medical field per capita. For Asians, you could easily say Asians, either one. The point is that it's their culture that pushes them to a larger percentage than average to make all the sacrifices, which ultimately could result in a career that, while lucrative, is unsatisfying and kind of mentally unstimulating. Maybe they wanted to be an artist. Maybe they wanted to be a dancer, a singer. Maybe they wanted to play sports, but now they're a dentist or they're a doctor or whatever. You can't ignore someone's background completely when you're trying to figure them out. And it's not wrong to the background, because a lot of times where people are going is based on where they're from. The problem is when you say, okay, well, that's all you can be. Because you came from XYZ or because you're this religion or you're this culture or you're this whatever, then that's all you can be and you can't grow beyond that. That's the racist part. That's the discriminatory part. But simply considering where somebody came from to understand them is not at all wrong. And that's one of the weaknesses of the West.
Oracle story about how people in the rest of the region see this conflict, think, interact with the world. So what does it mean to speak Arabic? What do you think we Israeli Jews are not getting that you as Israeli Jews see?
Yeah, from childhood, we're born with it, kind of.
Go on.
We see it. You see, I would even narrow it down. The Ashkenazi Jews, they're far. They don't see it at all. The Jews that came from Morocco,
They don't see what?
the language, what it means speaking Arabic. Druze have been living in this land for the last 1,000 years, and they've been dealing with the threats of the Middle East. Radical Islam want to basically conquer and destroy and kill everyone or convert them. So they know how to speak that language. They know what it means. They know what they respect.
So for our Ashkenazi Jewish listeners, what does it mean?
What it means, if I bring it down to 2 words, power and respect cannot come without power. That is the language that you need to understand in the Middle East. If you don't understand the language, you are doomed.
Power and respect.
And I'll give you the best example. I come from the world of negotiation. Let's say me and you are having an argument right now about who this plant belongs to. You say, it's mine.
This
I
is
said,
my studio.
Exactly. No, you say, it's my studio. I said, no, I want it. Now, you are way stronger than me. And you come and say,
I don't know, you're a special forces officer.
for the sake of the story. And you come and say, if this guy takes my plant, I can break every bone in his body. But then you come in and say, but you know what? For the sake of peace, I'm not going to listen. How about I'll give you part of the plant and you grow it, or I don't know what, we can grow it together for peace. Everybody in your world, let's say in the European American world, say like, wow, that was a sign of strength. That man showed restraint, showed diplomacy. He's a powerful man. In the Arab world, that man is weak. He's pretending to be strong, but I sense weakness. I can exploit that. Because if he was strong, he would have broke every bone in my body for daring to come and tell him, give me that, what is yours.
That's fascinating. You're saying that what in the West would be interpreted as restraint, as magnanimity, as a peace-building, confidence-building gesture will be seen in the Arab world as a sign of weakness. And weakness is then an invitation for more aggression.
For more violence. Yeah. Look at every Arab country that had a dictator, and when the dictator went down, the dictator was terrible. What happened? They became worse. Why? Because the power and respect was taken away. And it actually solved wars in the middle. I'll give you the best example right now, Iran. Iran, we're sitting here in the studio and we might have rockets landing on us any second because we're just waiting for these lunatics. Iran have everything to lose from fighting Israel and America. They're way stronger than her. They can go and destroy their nuclear, dream. They can take down that regime and make everybody happy in the Middle East almost.
Inshallah, as they say.
Inshallah, exactly. But they don't smell power and respect from Israel and from America right now, so they're allowing themselves to push. They're allowing the Houthis, a bunch of clowns riding on camels, going, Allah Akbar, we're going to destroy. How can the Houthis destroy America, They don't sense. China is the biggest enemy of Islam right now. They have concentration camps that they're keeping Muslims in concentration camps. You will not see any Muslim going now and shooting a rocket at China or fleeing because they sense power and respect there. They look at the West and they see weakness. We see it as humanitarian, as the highest, value. They see it as weakness and they exploit it. And the Druze in Israel and some of the Jews that came from the Arab countries, they understand that. They understand if I am not strong in the Middle East, if I don't have strength, power.
And right there in a nutshell is why we don't have peace in the Middle East. Peace is found through strength. It's only after World War II, these weak, mealy-mouthed European democracies that's decided that peace is won through negotiation. Peace is not won through negotiation. Peace is won through strength. It is strength that tells the other side to negotiate with you.
Power and respect, they will take advantage. They will become, we'll have more bloodshed. But if you show power and respect, they step back. They calm down. In every Arab country, they need to have a very strong leader. Otherwise, it goes to hell.
That's fascinating because Israel finds itself under so much pressure from the Western world and the largely Western rules of international diplomacy. Mm-hmm. Yes, the other side has just committed an act of aggression, but you need to de-escalate, show restraint, not use the strength that you have. And we saw this, by the way, during the last attack in April when Iran launched 350 missiles and drones at Israel in a single night. The world told Israel, don't respond, don't do anything, draw a line under the sand. But Israel said, no, we have to respond somehow. And there was some reported under the radar strike on an Iranian facility. And then we called it quits. But you're saying that the message that the Iranians received from that is vulnerability and an invitation to more aggression and violence and to push the line.
Even more than that. The message that we're going to receive is vulnerability from you guys, from the West, from Israel and America. And they also got another message. They gain more respect in the eyes of their allies, the radical Muslims in our world, because we are the only ones that dare to defy Israel, that dare to stand in the face of America. And we look them in the eyes and tell them, we're going to destroy you. And we even shoot rockets at them. What did they do? They do nothing. So now in their world...
Hear that? Israel and America are the last bastions of the West. Europe has fallen. Japan, Australia, declining birth rates. America and Israel are the last bastions of the West.
World, they're getting what? Power and respect.
That's why they say America deaf to Israel.
Popular since
because it represents the West.
They have massacre because it is able to turn around to the Palestinian public and say, we are the ones exercising power, demanding restraint in the face of...
Remember, the Shah of Iran was an ally with the West. So when they threw the Shah, deaf to America, deaf to Israel, because that is the West today.
Of the evil Zionists, and that helps them. And that actually the gestures you're saying that Israel is pressured into from the West to show that it's magnanimous. We have strength, but we're not going to use all of it because we are gracious.
Yes. They see it as weakness.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what you think the implications of that need to be as Israel confronts the Iranian regime and its proxy armies attacking us on 7 fronts. And I'll list them again because 7 is a lot to remember. We have Hamas in Gaza, terrorist groups in the West Bank, which Iran is trying to flood with weapons, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthi Islamic pirates in Yemen, Iranian militias in Syria, Iranian militias in Iraq, Iran itself, that's 7. I add an 8th front, which is the diaspora. And of course, Iran is trying to destabilize Jordan, turn that into a 9th, and to rope in the Taliban, make that a 10th. What do you think the implications of understanding the Arab mentality need to be for Israel's geopolitical strategy in trying to contain Iran and to bring the West on board, which doesn't understand it, into this effort to contain Iran?
I think that's enough for now. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and click on one of the videos above for more.